Good morning, everyone, and welcome to 1 Million Cups Fairfax. We are excited to have Bill Lloyd here this morning. So let's get started. So good morning, Bill, and welcome. Thank you for presenting this morning.
Welcome to the Charitable Payraise, and I'm a 34-year veteran of the financial services space, and this is our challenge question, which is before you right now. We created a solution that's been in progress through last 5.5 years. I personally feel responsible for supporting the entire legal industry through COVID. I think I, should get a round of applause for that. They're all still making money thanks to me. But one of the things that happened back on January 1, 2018 was the initiation of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And in that legislation came a very subtle change in something dealing with employer stock that's held inside a retirement plan. Our solution actually works with any appreciated asset, land, business interest. You bought Apple stock on day one, whatever it might be. But for these individuals, they have often labored for 20, 30 years to acquire company stock in their retirement plan, and they get pummeled from a tax standpoint when they try to use this value to support their retirements. So the people that we're looking to get in contact with, as you can see here, are companies that have 401ks and ESOPs with company stock inside them. Next slide, please. A little bit about me. As I mentioned, the tax law change, I think we can keep right on going. That happens to be the app that you saw on the screen that we had patented last year. What is our company's timeline? We started in 2018 when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act came into law. It dawned on me that we could combine an area of tax law dealing with nonprofits with something that happened dealing with the employer stock, combine them and create a win-win opportunity for the employee as they approach retirement and charity at the same time. We started bringing on clients in 2021 and then official launch 2022. Next, please. So what is it that we actually do? We're helping a client make the most of their assets is really what happens at the end of the day. Our strategy, our method, helps reduce the taxation on their assets as an individual is transitioning from the accrual phase of life to the income distribution phase of life. And who always gets their hand in the middle of that transition? The tax man. Well, we've come up with a way to eliminate a huge portion of the taxation as we transition, create tax-free cash flow from one and sometimes two sources, and support charity at the same time in what amounts to being a guaranteed plan gift for the charity, and then a big final legacy gift. Next, please. How do we generate revenue? 3 ways. Number one, we charge a user license for the use of our intellectual property, and we provide our clients and their own attorney and advisors all of the documents necessary to implement our strategy. And we charge a declining fee. It's a one-time upfront fee for that. Number two, there's an annual service fee because the app that I didn't go through that was patented, our clients have use of for the rest of their life, as do the charities they work with and their financial advisors. So there's a carrying cost for all of that. And finally, in some cases, we may derive some investment or insurance compensation when it's appropriate. Other times we do not. Our job is not to compete with advisors. We want to be the new arrow, the shiny one, in advisors' quivers, and let them and teach them how to use our strategy in tandem with what they already know. Next, please. Okay, what do we offer? As I mentioned, we have a financial method and app which is patented, the documents I just mentioned, and we are a retirement strategy. The thing that I would ask you to remember is that our goal is to produce tax-free cash flow for the rest of the client's life. What we are not is a resource to create lump sums. There are other strategies to help people in that boat. What we're all about is income and forever. and helping people make their dollars go longer, as well as immunizing them to a degree from the tax code. Who are our ideal clients? Wealthy individuals, but I'd say in this area, there's so many people from a national standard that around here are middle class, but on a national basis are way up. So it really includes a heck of a lot of people. And it's those with appreciated assets as well as company stock in their retirement plans. And nonprofits that are interested in using our strategy as a brand new market, what's known as middle market to them. What is the unique value we do? I already mentioned. We provide greater after-tax cash flow. We normally improve a client's after-tax cash flow by 25 to 50%. That's kind of our bogey. I'm going to move you guys out of the way for a second. Our solution provides, as mentioned, tax-free cash flow generated inside an LLC solution, as well as sometimes we create a charitable deduction, which allows us to help the client also create a Roth IRA. So in many cases, the client ends up with two for the price of one. The LLC and a Roth, both producing tax-free cash flow for the rest of their lives. And as mentioned, guaranteed plan gift for the charities, and then it turns into a major bequest at the finish line. Next slide, please. Target audience, we work with financial advisors. We go directly to clients, wealth management firms. As mentioned in our ask, we're looking for ways to connect with companies that have appreciated stock in either their 401k or in an ESOP. And we discovered the other day that Fairfax, Virginia is the 13th largest number of employees that own employer stock inside a retirement plan in the United States. Believe it or not, Lynchburg, Virginia is third. Who knew? So what companies and organizations? We're working with My Financial Coach, which is a CFP entity out of Arizona, Exemplar, which is also a high-end financial advisory firm, and financial planning firms, community foundations, HR department, as well as those involved in management of companies that have what's known as NUA stock, employer stock in a retirement plan. We do partnerships, we do webinars, we do LinkedIn, we do podcasts. Our webinars are twice a month, and we do continuing education for CPAs where we have an approved course for 1 hour of continuing ed for them. Next, please. And who are our competitors? You may have heard of CRATs and CRUTs, Charitable Remainder Unit Trust, Charitable Remainder Annuity Trusts. These are legal entities used when we're giving away an asset, and then it goes into these entities and they will receive income at some point from them, and it's partially taxable. Our solution is non-taxable, so our economics are superior. And also sometimes people just say, the heck with it, I'm going to use an annuity to create income for life, which is great, but it's going to be taxable, whereas again, ours is not. So we feel that we're, even though these are supposedly competitors from a legal standpoint, when people look at the economics, we come out way ahead, both for the client and for the charity, both. Next slide. Inbound, this is tax planning season. People tend to know right now if what their tax burden is going to be by the end of the year. We can be one of many solutions. In addition, if folks are looking at retiring now or in early next year, we can help them out. That's it. Next slide. Oh, and we are working with Purple Heart Foundation as well to help them in their quest for more revenue to support our veterans in need. Here's our challenge question, and we'd love to get any input from all of you on this. Any advice you could give us would be great, and happy to take any questions.
So I think this is where I unmute and jump on. I am facilitating questions today. So if you've got a question, please raise your hand, as we talked about earlier. And then if after you've raised your hand, you don't have to state your name because everybody knows you here today, but just ask one question. If you've got a second question, don't continue asking questions. Put your hand up again and we can go on. First, we've got both Johns. Well, not all three. Wow. So we've got John Norris, John Foster, and then Ken. And then I may jump in with a couple of things. So go ahead, John Norris.
Hey, Bill.
Hey.
What's funny is I obviously know your brother, but I was working on a case and the guy's name was Ted. And I was like, oh, Ted Lloyd, that's who I know. Anyway, sorry about that. Hey, I'm a member of the FPA, Financial Planners Association. And, I think it's a pretty good organization. They have their annual convention typically coming up in January, I believe. I've met a lot of good people there and obviously can make introductions, but it's definitely worth, that is your sweet spot in terms of who identifies as your, actual client referral partner, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to come to some events or something, let me know. I'd be glad to take you over there or whatever, just whatever it takes. But I think
Thank you.
It's a good group.
Thank you. I'd love to join you.
Next, John Foster.
Hey, Bill.
Hello, John Foster.
So the one thing which I like a little more clarity on, it seems like you have a lot of, potential prospects. But what would you say is your ideal, your ideal referral? Because I couldn't tell if it was going to be an asset management firm, a financial planner, or an individual.
To some degree, it's all of the above, but I would say our sweet spot are the financial advisors. For this business to succeed, we have to become used commonly by financial advisors who become comfortable with it. We have what's also, I didn't mention it, but we have something called a should tax opinion from Fisher Broyles, which is a pretty good firm.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the IRS should approve of everything in here and they'll back it up. So that's really the cornerstone of the whole deal. But we want to become an asset to financial advisors and get them to realize we're not competing for their dollar.
Yeah. Okay.
Next, we have Ken.
You've posted a challenge question, and on the challenge question slide, you've got some big whales. You got a couple of blue whales as targets, as examples of the places that you want to go. And it seems to me that two things. One, you just asked, where's your sweet spot? And you answered that by saying all of these different sort of consultative practitioners. Expanding in this direction seems to be a major diversion away from your sweet spot, which is curious to me. And so that's a comment. And then the second question is, have you considered moving down the pyramid from the Capital Ones and the Northern Virginia homes to a broader spot in the pyramid where there are smaller, potentially easier, whale hunting is hard work, but you can fish for sailfish much more easily.
Thank you. A friend of mine recently said, he referred to it as elephant hunting. And then he said, it's not really elephant hunting if you find the herd. But the point here is, number one, yes, we scale down and we work with privately held companies that have ESOPs where they're rank and file employees. We can help them just as much as we could somebody at NV Homes or Northrop Grumman, absolutely, number one. And as you see, this is quote, a new segment. We look at it as B2B and B2C. Our B2B is working with financial advisors and nonprofits. Our B2C is some of the local people right around here that we can help improve their retirements locally. And you're absolutely right. We want to be known to the individuals in the HR department and other places as a tool. And then we're more than happy to support their own financial advisor in using our technique. And you asked another part of the question, but I missed it.
No. Those are the two. That was
Okay.
it.
I'm going to jump in before I come to you, John, just so you know. But I'm going to mention two associations, SHRM, SHRM, and ASAE. I'm connected in those areas, so I can help you with that. And I'd like to carry on a further conversation with you because my husband and I are exactly your target market. He's vested and he wants to retire next June.
Congratulations.
So there's a
You
discussion
actually-
there offline.
And
And that may help you with his company.
That's
You're
fantastic.
getting in a door.
That's ideal. But Jen told me, Bill, you've got 7.5 minutes. So I tried to steamroll through. So some of the questions I did not answer or attend to adequately. But to your point, and to John and to Ken's point also, as people start to approach retirement is when it's best for folks to start setting the stage for their retirement. And that's usually a couple of years ahead of time. It's not right at the finish line. So just there are things you can do aside from my idea. I'm a tax strategist in my other world. There are many things that you can pre-position to help yourself greatly. And just we all know how big our darn national debt is. So I think the more that you can do from a tax planning standpoint ahead of the game, the better off you'll be. This is just one method. We're excited about it, but there are other things you can do as well, and you should take a look at them. So great. Thank you.
So first we have John Rutenberg, and then we have John Foster again.
So if I understand this correctly, Bill, first, thank you very much for coming today. Really, really appreciate your presentation and preparation and excited for you. So I'm trying to reverse engineer things. So you need to have your target audience might be the C-suite of these companies and some of the key executives. But if I'm correct, you're really ultimately selling to a high net worth individual. And it's a high net worth being X million. You'd have to tell me how many millions it requires for it to be worth the doing this to make sense. And my real question is, does it make sense in order to achieve your challenge question to go to those charities where their top 10% of their donors meet the X million dollar net worth requirement? And by selling it to the nonprofit execs for their high-end donors, you have a friend selling on your behalf, if you will, to the ultimate consumer who is, a high net worth individual near retirement with X millions of, and just curious, how many is X millions before this makes sense?
Believe it. Thank you for that. Couple of things real quick. Number one, I'm on the Planned Giving Committee at Colgate University, my undergraduate alma mater, and then UVA also. But anyway, bottom line is we call it the 250 and 50 rule. And what I mean by that is 200, if you have an asset of 250,000 and it has appreciated by 50% over the years, the economics still makes sense to take a look at using our solution, net of legal fees and net of an appraisal that's mandatory in the use of our method. So even with that, those costs, you're still going to come out way ahead than if you use traditional methods with that asset because of the capital gains tax implications, which in Virginia are about 30%. Obviously, if you live in Tennessee or Florida, a little bit less. But the bottom line is that's our minimum cutoff. And so that doesn't really require an ultra high net, super high net worth. The reality is that it just so happens that most of the clients are probably 2-3 million of net worth, just because they've accrued it over time through appreciation in their house, other assets. That's commonplace in the Baltimore, Washington area, as you're well aware. The other thing is high-end donors, absolutely. but we're not looking, excuse me, for Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. We are in what charities call a mid-level donor. And they define that as someone who wants to do more than a couple of $1,000s that they do every year because they love a particular charity, but they don't know how to do it. And many people are afraid of giving away something big and then running out of money at the end of their life. We solve that problem. Without getting too into the weeds, the dollars which are coming to our clients are coming non-taxable because they're in the form of a loan that gets repaid upon death to the LLC and then ends up being funneled to the charity. So they're going to be making a 7, sometimes 8-figure final bequest to the charity or charities or donor advised fund of their choice. So it's giving them that ability to really do something meaningful for themselves, their family, their kids, their towns, their neighborhoods, whatever meant something to them in their lifetime. I have this deal with God. I work on the method. He picks the charities.
Next, we've got John Foster and then Ken again.
So, Bill, in your comment earlier about wanting to work with the financial advisors, how do you? And I know it's probably too much in the weeds, but just from a showing that you're not competition, and then obviously from a compensation standpoint, what does that look like?
Great question. We do 2 webinars per month. Next one is actually on Friday. The first one of each month is what we call nuts and bolts, where we actually teach them at a rather high level how it works. So they get comfortable with the basic theme. We're not expecting them to be able to, relay, spell out the tax code for it, but we want them to see that we're creating opportunities for them, because if they're coming into a client with a new idea that can produce 25 or 35% greater after-tax cash flow for the client and their spouse during retirement, and they're competing with somebody that doesn't have the idea, hopefully they're going to win that case. And that means they're going to get assets under management inside the solution, and they might get a life insurance because, as I mentioned a second ago, that loan that has to be repaid is often is done so by second to die life insurance. So they may get a sale out of that as well. So we're their friend, not their enemy.
Okay.
Next, we have Ken again.
So I spent a little while in Chicago, and I had an acquaintance in Chicago who was working with religious institutions in order to arrange for stabilized donations from their top tier donors. I'm wondering if you've thought about building a nest of religious institutions, because there are, for want of a better phrase, fat cat donors in every big church.
It is a great idea, and I would love to find a way to attract individuals on, whether it's the board of elders, a vestry, whatever it might be, to help guide that interest, or firms that consult in that area.
My suggestion would be to build out from your client base, to find members of your client base who are associated to religious institutions that they may already be significant contributors to. Not necessarily your client base, but your client's client base.
Got it. That's a great idea. And
that's why we're here.
Well,
try and help you.
Yeah.
I got another one for you, Bill. Are you familiar with ACT for Alexandria? I mean, I could talk from Alexandria because I lived there for 9 years.
Sure. What was the name of it again, Melinda?
It's ACT, A-C-T. It's a nonprofit for nonprofits, and they do fundraising for the nonprofits. I think I can introduce you to the person who runs that. That's a really great organization. And I would bet that a lot of other communities have other organizations like ACT, if you look up Act for Alexandria, you'll find out more about it. But I think that's a really great way to find out which nonprofits in a community might also be appropriate for somebody who wants to leave a legacy or whatever, and they're active in the community. You may even be able to work with the city council on stuff like that. I'm just thinking of the more you get community involved in it for the consumer side, it's going to be a lot better. And then you're going to be able to reach the financial planners in the area. And again, through some of the local chambers, you may be able to accomplish this as well, because I know, for an example, both Alexandria chambers, the Mount Vernon chamber and the Old Town chamber, they have active nonprofit groups too that they have meetings for. So again, it may be a way just to reach out very easily. And you could probably do this going through some of the larger nonprofits in the area, like the Asian nonprofit, and there are a whole bunch of them. So I mean, it may get you where you're going faster. But again, SHRM and ASAE are other organizations to get to the HR people. And then you want to look for people that might be are willing, almost ready to retire with these organizations. My husband works for a nonprofit. It's AMVA, the group that does the licensing organization throughout the country. They've got a whole bunch of data centers where they control all of the driver license and license plate information. But there's a lot of stuff like that in the Alexandria, Arlington, DC area that's just perfect for you. So you don't have to go far and you can test it.
Thank you.
Reggie, you're next.
Bill, I just had a question about how your product is delivered in terms of like the technology behind it. What I'm thinking is that a lot of these companies offer some kind of dashboard where the employee can track all the money stuff that's happening on their behalf, like in one place. And so if you can develop, or if you offer a tool that can be easily integrated into what the company's already doing in that regard, like that might be very attractive to them, you know, so they could just kind of layer it into what they're already providing for their staff. So if I don't know if you have that available, if that's something that you're working on, but I think that's a selling point when you go to talk to these companies.
Absolutely. Many financial advisors use either eMoney or Naviplan, or there are a number of different software packages. And we intentionally built our apps so that they could export the data in Excel and carve it out of ours and put it right into the other softwares that the advisors are using, so that it presents as another revenue source, another income source in retirement. And all they have to do is, when they put it into the other software, just make sure that that stream is not taxed. And then it will present alongside and aggregate with the rest of the information very nicely. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that through, by becoming a client, as I mentioned, the individual client, their financial advisor, and the charity will all be credentialed and be able to go online to our app, which is maintained right now on Azure with Amazon. And we've got cybersecurity, we've got all kinds of different things going on to protect the data and everything else. But they can go on and make adjustments annually. And the next thing that's going to happen in our app is we'll have live feed once a day of the actual values inside the LLC, so that themselves, the advisor and the charity, can use our tool for forecasting in real time.
Next, we've got Ken again.
I'm mute. You're on mute.
Well, that doesn't work well. Have you ever crossed paths or seen a guy named Rocky DiFrancesca?
Yes.
Rocky comes to mind. He's the kind of guy who loves digging into exactly this sort of thing. And I suspect that if Rocky were to get behind it and understand what you're doing, if you can keep him out of your marketplace, that he may be an interesting resource to expand your exposure within his community of advisors on both the wealth management and insurance side. If you don't have contact information for him, reach back to me from the email I sent you, and I'll try and hook it up.
Thank you.
There's another one that you can do too. And I got very lucky in the beginning when social media was so new. A lot of the financial planning companies in Northern Virginia had me in to teach their staff what they could do and what they couldn't do. They all have weekly meetings. You should get yourself as a speaker in front of the group and talk to whoever's coordinating their weekly sales meetings. And start with some of the big organizations here, because I think that would get you in front of the whole team. And, start with the sales manager, whoever's in, running that, and say that you've got something that is a product that they may be able to use and it will help their clients. And you'd like to give them a free demonstration of how it works and what you can do. And all you have to do is bring lunch. So it's easy. And a number of them, I had like 40, 50 people in the room, and I ended up with 2 or 3 people afterwards that actually hired me to help them do what they needed to do.
Oh, that's a very good idea. Back in my early days, when I was peddling disability policies to medical residents, if you feed them, they will come.
Right. So I call it breakfast and learns or lunch and learns, and I'm just going to put that in the chat.
Yeah. Boy, don't you miss those old disability policies?
They absolutely.
I'm looking for who's
Foster
John Foster's got a
I just had one other comment, Bill. What about the as far as the insurance companies? A number of insurance companies have I'll say advanced strategy people within them.
Yes.
And so I'm guessing some of the the one that came to mind was Pacific Mutual, but I mean there are a bunch of them out there that have the advanced strategy people that are talking to advisors every day and bringing them cases.
You're spot on, and we're very, very deep into that world right now.
Okay.
Yep. We talk to a lot of advanced sales attorneys and the directors of business for various Pinnacle Group, Ash, various insurance companies. And it's kind of like they're all looking for Mikey to go first. And,
right. Yes. That's that first. Yeah. And then what about like some of the smaller broker dealers? I'm thinking like United Planners.
Happy to. It's actually, we prefer speaking to smaller organizations because there are fewer layers.
Yep.
For instance, we work a lot with an entity called University Impact, a donor advised fund based out of outside of Salt Lake City, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
They are beyond phenomenal, but they're not 42 layers.
Right.
And we actually got referred to them by Fidelity Charitable, which said, we've got 1,000 attorneys that are going to go through this before we are able to do business with you.
Right.
But you might want to talk to these guys because they're sharp and they're new.
Yep.
It's been a great romance ever since.
Great.
I'm back.
Okay, I know. Next is Ken, and I was just going to say, have you thought of doing things in Zoom calls too? That may be an easy way. And you can always send the pizza, so that they're there or something. That would be a way to do it. I used it as a door opener way back when I wanted to get into advertising agencies and get them to talk to me, that I'd suggest, I'd send over a pizza to the appropriate folks for whatever to talk to them. And it would usually be on the business development side, not
Sure.
on the I'm looking for a job, but it works.
Oh, absolutely. And Tess, in the good old days, I used to bring jambalaya
Oh,
to
there
my
you go.
meetings down in New Orleans. I was a rock star.
So,
Hey, Ken, go ahead.
yeah, I think I'm going to be standing on John Rutenberg's shoulders. This sounds like John Rutenberg. Isn't it necessary for ESOPs to be registered with Uncle Sam? And is the registry of ESOPs publicly available so that you might be able to charge down through the list?
Good question. There is something called free ERISA. And the answer is yes, they're registered, but it's a subset of all retirement plans. And we had a study run for us by Lincoln Financial Group. And there are over 26,000 retirement plans in the United States, public and private, that include employer stock in their plans.
You have a surfeit of opportunity.
Yeah. And we know that in the baby boomer generation, as part of our research, we know that, what's the statistic? It is something like, I want to say 8% of the baby boomer generation has employer stock. It's like 8 to 9% has employer stock in their retirement plan. And that translates to umpteen million people that are in there. So there's a huge capacity just in employer stock, known as NUA, net unrealized appreciation. But remember, the method itself works for any appreciated asset or even cash. But what we're seeking today is a way to not only let financial advisors and nonprofits know, as you guys have been great at advising me on, but we also want to hit those HR people like the SHRM and other things, and even CFOs, COOs at smaller companies, to your point, Ken, who would, we hope, like to hear about this because it's going to help their employees enjoy better retirements. And the other theory that we've pursued is this. There are many companies that support charities on their own. They practice corporate philanthropy. Would it not make sense when people are retiring if there were a way for them to encourage, via this tool, supporting those same charities that they've chosen, even though, and helping their employees have a better retirement at the same time?
I'm going to ask a quick question, then bring Ken back. Do you have a staff? Are they sales? And do you have an ambassador program?
I do not have an ambassador program, and that's a really good idea. In terms of my staff, yes. Jen Dalton is my key decision maker.
Oh, that's great.
She's been with me for 4 years, maybe even longer, but I don't make decisions without running them by her. And I've got another gal who is in charge of keeping me and my world moving forward, Christina Buffington. And then I've got, like any business needs, I've got a loose cannon on the deck. Kylie Dahl, who is sales and marketing and that sort of thing. And so those are the 3 key people on my team right now. And then we're partnering with certain advisors around the country also to help us, because we will revenue share. For instance, if you're a fee-based financial planning firm and you're not going to do the assets under management and you're not going to sell the insurance, you need to have a financial incentive to be involved. So we will, in those cases, work out a compensation arrangement. But I'd love to get your thoughts on the ambassador program.
I'd love to talk to you about that offline. Ken is next, and then I'm going to ask John Rutenberg to do the final question.
So, Bill, you had mentioned that you had patented the app. I'm curious about whether you can erect a barrier to entry into your market by throwing some sort of protection around the methodology.
We have got trademarks and copyrights on all of our materials. But the reality is that if someone, according to the US Patent and Trademark Office, could sit down at their kitchen table with a calculator, even if it took them 3 years, and they could come up with the same end result that we did, then you can't get a patent. So what you do is you tie your financial method to the GUI, the technology that actually moves in real time, the screen, and then that is what's patentable, is that mathematical connection to the GUI. And that's how you protect your math, is by the uniqueness of what is going to be displayed on the screen as a basis of the underlying mathematical parts. And my background's in theoretical math, and that's where all that comes from.
Interesting. Thank you.
Before John asks a question, we have somebody in the room, Bashira, I don't know if I'm saying it right, who wrote a question into the chat that's worth sharing, and maybe you can jump in. Is it demo ready? Would be happy from an HR perspective to give functional feedback. So, Bashira, why don't you say something a little bit, and then the door is open.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I joined late today. Yeah, my name is Basharat, and my background is in HR technology. So I did just catch the tail end of your service offering. And when I hear what you're offering from an HRIS perspective, it looks like if I'm an employer, then I would want your solution to be embedded in my benefit enrollment process for my employees, right? Does that sound about accurate?
I think it would be more a time of exit, as you're starting to look at people that are going to leave your employ, and
Okay.
help them model what they can do with their retirement assets.
Yeah, so you're given information to help the employees make decisions, informed decisions on retirement plans and whatnot. So I can think of some other platforms that might be doing the same thing as yours. So you might want to check that out. One is Pasito. I think they built some, and it's interesting you said theoretical math. They built a AI engine or tool that kind of takes some data, mathematical data, economy, metrics on utilization, and helps the employees make decisions on their benefits. So you can check out their platform. But my question was, if your software is demo ready, I can come in from an HRIS perspective and see how it can be embedded into other platforms. But I can see you listing your app on marketplaces of other existing HR software, so it can be added as an add-on for the companies who need to use them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a good idea.
Hey, John, all yours.
Just so you know, it's not only demo ready, it's in use. And my app developer is always happy, as one of my board members said, once you're in the app business, you're always in the app business. It's a lifelong expense.
Kind of like your house. Never bottomless pit.
Knew.
Yes, I do. So the final question, our traditional question, which is shown on the screen. What else can our 1 Million Cups community help you with today?
I think you've largely done it by all the advice that I've received today from different directions, and it's all appreciated. And I want to say thank you very much for the advice and for having me. I mean, from soup to nuts. Even, I'm going to mispronounce Basharat, but even, from all the different directions, it's good. I guess my ask of you all would be, keep it in the back of your mind, this conversation today, and let your subconscious play with it. And then when you have an idea, my ask is that you get back, whether it be through Jen or through myself, either way. Because
Bill,
I've achieved my goal today.
Did
I
you
have
put
been
your
part of a
contact
community.
information into the chat?
Sure. You're also welcome to go to, it's just charitablepayraise.com. And on there, Basharat, there is a demo version of the app on our website, as well as a lot of content from every direction under the sun. From blogs. By the way, my personal favorite blog that I wrote is, thank you. If you don't like your children, leave them your retirement plan. Because of the punitive tax laws that now require the retirement plans, including what we've talked about today, employer stock, all that money has to be poured out in the 10 years following the death of the parent. So if it's all taxable, it could really, you're going to lose at least 40% of what you intended to give your children. So we can help avoid that. But at any rate, so let me see here, chat.
Great. Back to you, Tess.
Yep.
Perfect. So next week, thank you, Ted. I'm sorry, I was reading John Norse's message. Thanks, John, for messing me up. Thank you, Bill, for your presentation today. I gotta love John Norse. But anyways, our next presenter for next week will be Carmen Clifford from Invest Wise program. So we are looking forward to that. We hope that you will return as a community to support her presentation and help her with her business challenge. Next slide, please. Again, we would love for you to be an organizer. As you can see, we have a lot of fun here. So it's very light, but you know, it's a great way for us to support each other and support the business community. And you know, it's better to hear from others. As Bill has said, it's helped him just with the different ideas. So please consider being an organizer or a brand ambassador for us. Our upcoming events, there are a ton of them coming up. Actually, Reggie and myself today are going to be on a panel this afternoon from I think it's like 1:30 to 3. So we will be talking about utilizing tech in your own business market. There are also a lot of veteran events and fundraisers happening. I know that one of them that is not listed here is the Pledge to Patriots event, which will be at Mackenzie's in Old Town, Fairfax. That will be tomorrow night from 6:30 to 9:30. And that event will actually benefit the Yellow Ribbon Fund. Is Karen still on the call? If she is, I believe she had something to share as well. Nope. Okay, so there, I believe what Karen shared earlier in the chat was there is a Business 101 webinar, and you can find these all these different events at the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce website.
Hey,
if you check on that
Tess.
QR code. Yes. Oh, Karen
Yes,
is here.
I
Okay,
am
cool.
still on. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Good morning, everyone. The Fairfax County Economic Development Authority presents Entrepreneurship 101, starting a business in Fairfax County next Tuesday. It's from 8 until 11:30. We have an entrepreneur spotlight speaker. Many of you may recognize the name, Donnell Johns. He is going to be our entrepreneur spotlight speaker. And it's only fitting in that we will celebrate veteran entrepreneurs as well during this workshop. But don't be fooled by the name Entrepreneurship 101, starting a business in Fairfax County. It is not just for startups. It's for people interested in identifying resources to expand or grow their companies. So we welcome all, no matter what the phase of the business life cycle your company is in. So again, it is next Tuesday, November 14th from 8 a.m. till 11:30. Great networking. There is a networking breakfast that starts at 7:30. It's from 7:30 to 8, and then the workshop kicks off at 8. So thank you again for the opportunity to share information, and I look forward to seeing everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And that's a great segue. Actually, at the bottom of that event slide, that Donnell Johns actually coordinates the Veterans Growing America Business pop-up shop in the Woodbridge area. So we'd love for you to support that as well on the weekends. Next slide. So for our presenter schedule, as you can see, we will not be meeting on November 22nd, which is the day before Thanksgiving. We are looking for presenters for our December 20th and 27th. We do have somebody that will be in person on our December 6th, but we are looking for presenters for the end of the month and, of course, going into the new year. Next slide. If you would follow us on all social media, that would really help us with growing our community. And please share that. So you can scan the QR code, all the links are in one place, and we would love for you to share that within your personal and business networks. So we would love for you to stick around a little bit for a chat. Just be aware that we are still live on Facebook at the moment. So until the Zoom has ended. With that, we thank you. Is there another
Thank
slide
you
or is
all.
that the end?
Yeah, Tess, can
And,
you,
Bill,
Yes.
if you would be willing, I'd like to reach out to you to set up a